Hello ladies and gentlemen of the interwebs, and today we're looking at something that may seem at first glance a little bit unusual, but if you stick with me, you'll understand why I'm bringing this to your attention. Today we're going to be looking at gold bullion that's been adulterated with tungsten. You may be asking yourself, why do I care, Graham? I don't have half a dozen bars of gold underneath me mattress. No, you may not, but you may have a mortgage, you may have a small collection of gold coins or jewellery, and it may actually affect the country you're currently living in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just from a high level go across what the problems currently are and the history behind it, and then we're going to go over the size of this market, because these gold and precious metals markets are absolutely enormous. And at the end of all this, I'll go over how you can actually purchase your own fake gold bar, perfectly legitimately of course, as long as you don't try and pass it off as a genuine gold brick, because that would be highly illegal and fraudulent, and we don't want you spending lots of time in jail. So let's dive straight in and take a look at this video from the States.
This 10-ounce gold bar costing nearly $18,000 turns out to be a counterfeit, worth just about $3,600. It's filled with tungsten, which weighs nearly the same as gold, but costs just over $1 an ounce. Ibrahim Fado bought the bar from a merchant who sold him real gold before, but he heard counterfeit gold bars were going around, so he drilled into several of his gold bars worth about $100,000 and saw gray tungsten, not gold.
I really got sick, you know. It's a big amount of money, and I could not believe that somebody very professional, clever, it's perfect.
What makes it such a devious crime is apparently a real gold bar is purchased, including one with a serial number and papers. It's then hollowed out, most of the gold is sold, and tungsten is put inside because it weighs almost exactly the same as gold. And then the gold bar is rebuilt, so you can't tell, no scratches. That's a pretty sophisticated operation. MTB, the Swiss manufacturer of the gold bars, says customers should only buy from a reputable merchant. The problem, he admits, is Ibrahim Fado is a very reputable merchant.
We have reported it to the FBI and the U.S. Secret Service, and the matter is currently under investigation by the authorities.
The Secret Service, which deals with counterfeits, says it's investigating. In March, gold bars filled with tungsten showed up in England. With New York now hit, it may mean an international ring's involved.
Yes indeed, as we're just about to find out, it's more than just one international ring. It seems to be quite prevalent. In fact, it's becoming the norm. But let's just take a look at the size of this market. The precious metals market is absolutely enormous. It's $7 quadrillion. Quadrillions, not a word that you normally bandy about. Quadrillion. So just how big is $7 quadrillion? And again, this is just a rough guesstimate. It's between $6.5 and $7 quadrillion, but let's just see how much 7 quadrillion is. So I've put this graphic together just to show the size of it. So $7 million has got 6 zeros after the number 7. $7 billion has got 9 zeros after the 7. $7 trillion has got 12 zeros after the 7, and $7 quadrillion, get this, 15 zeros after the 7. That's absolutely enormous. So the current US economy is being guesstimated to be around about $21.44 trillion. Now we compare that to how many years of the US economy would equal the current estimate of the precious metals market, and it would take about 326.5 years to equal it. So that's quadrillions. Let's get back down into our everyday billions and trillions that we normally talk about. Yes, obviously. And let's just see what this problem really is. So here is a webpage that shows the story of that poor guy who spent $18,000 on a gold bar that's really only worth $3,600. And it looks fine, it's got all the right marks on. Unfortunately, he had to drill a hole into it to find out he'd lost a fair amount of money. And just underneath it, you can see here how well made this bar is. It's pretending to be what's called a PAMP bar, which is from Switzerland. And it's a very high quality copy, so how prevalent is this? Well, what we discover is just a few days later, after that report has been made, there's another 10 bars being found in the same place in Manhattan by the same type of people as this poor gentleman you've just seen previously. So it's not just Manhattan, no, let's just have a little look at other places around the world. And in this news report, we see that an Ottawa bank in Canada has sold counterfeit gold bar to a jeweller. And here we see another report that 300 fake bars were found by the Perth Mint in Australia, which is a shame because they're trying to raise awareness on the website. And here is that website. They're trying to demonstrate to people what to look for fake gold. And this is fake Perth Mint gold from Australia. And then in the States, we've got San Francisco police warning people that there's a massive Chinese gold scam ongoing. And then over in Ethiopia, this is back in 2008, there were fears about the Ethiopian Central Bank actually selling fake gold, which is gold-plated steel bars. And that wasn't the only time. 9 years later, 2017, Central Bank of Ethiopia caught yet again selling fake gold bars. But it's not just gold bars that are the problem. I mean, we just looked at the small and medium end. There's also an issue with tungsten-filled gold and silver coins. They've got the process off to such a good extent that it's worth their time. When I mean them, I mean the people who are doing this fraud, worth their time sorting out the smaller end of the market, because it's quite prolific. It's not 1 or 2 coins, it's not 10 or 20, it's hundreds of thousands of coins just in the States alone that have been adulterated. But the coins again are at the smaller end. Let's take a look at the other end, which is the gold bullion market, and the sort of bars that banks, gold bullion markets and countries will buy and trade together. So in that last little bit you saw that there was some Chinese fakes that came out, but that are affecting the bullion market. But this bit here, it's not mainstream news site, but I am seeing elements of fake gold being found in China from the United States of America. I don't know how true that is. There don't seem to be many sort of, let's call them legacy news websites that hold that sort of information, but doesn't necessarily mean it's not true. I'm not saying it is, but there's some very strange goings on in the gold market, and this is just one of them. Here's another one. It's all to do with people making a claim of there being counterfeit gold inside Fort Knox, which is quite extraordinary. But keep in mind that nothing inside Fort Knox has been audited within the last 50 years, so could it be true? Who knows? But this little section I've highlighted here talks about the fact that gold is regularly traded between countries and between markets. We're going to take a look at the London Bullion Market Association in just a moment, but this next section I've highlighted talks about how back in October 2009 China did some tests and found out there was around about 6,000 adulterated bars. Now this next article I'm going to show you is by a guy called Egon von Greyers, and it talks about the amount of adulteration within the gold market. I am going to be putting all of these pages, all of the links to all of these pages and some of the videos I've shown you in the information down underneath this video. So in the meantime though, what Egon does talk about was a time when he was approached by a TV company, and they mentioned about a gold factory in China that had manufactured fake bars, $500,000 worth for just $500. And also you'll find that these bars are marked as either Swiss or Australian refiners who are part of the London Bullion Market Association, also known as the LMBA. And what I do keep finding is this word that keeps coming up is this pamp gold, this high quality Swiss gold, because I think if you're going to adulterate gold, why not pick the best? Why not pick the Swiss gold? And why don't we take a look at what's also happening in China against the Chinese banks? Now this is quite a funny story actually, because there's a farmer called Yang Yun, sorry I'll try and get that bit right. So he's a farmer. He took 100 kilos of gold, because there's a lot of farmers in this province of Zhejiang in China where they mine their own gold, and he borrowed $2.8 million and left the gold as a deposit, as security, in case he reneged on the deal and they would just keep the gold. So what happens is he reneged on the deal, and the bank said, we're going to melt this gold down. And when they did, it only had around about 36% gold. All of the rest of it was tungsten. And here we have, in April 2016, after the bank failed to collect a repayment from Yang, he then obviously forfeited his gold. They'd melted it down, and unfortunately their 36.5% was gold. The rest of it was pure tungsten, and tungsten's really cheap compared to gold. I think it's something like about $30 a kilo for tungsten. Now, one of the issues that have since raised their heads is that now in the area where the Shaanxi Rural Credit Cooperative Union, it's like a bank, operates, they've been hit really hard. I mean, it's something like 46 tons of fake gold, which is a massive, massive amount of money. And so that's put a bit of a dampener on that market in that area. But the story doesn't end there, because this young chap who had borrowed $2.8 million ran away to Portugal, and in total there's been something like 2.4 billion euros worth of fraud in that small area. And it has had a massive knock-on effect, and he's now in hiding in Portugal. There's Interpol have got an arrest warrant, I believe, out for him, but he's currently MIA, missing in action. But that brings us nicely on to our next point, and there's lots of points we've gone through. We're nearly at the end of this journey, and that is of fake gold branded bars, as in it's possibly full of gold, but you know, when I mentioned the PAMP Swiss gold mark, it's actually in the same way you have blood diamonds, you also have blood gold from areas where it shouldn't come from conflict areas, or from drug runners, international crooks, warlords, etc. They're actually laundering gold under things like the PAMP brand and putting them out on the market as legitimate gold. Now, it may or may not be adulterated, but the issue here isn't the adulteration of gold, it's the fact that it's come from an illegitimate source and it's pretending to be something it's not. So, just as an aside on this webpage I'm showing you, this report does mention later on, we're going to come to this in a moment, so there's an example of gold that now has other markings on it using some newer technology. But it says here that fake gold bars, blocks of cheaper metal plated with gold, are relatively common in the gold industry and are often easy to detect. Well, only through destructive testing, but non-destructive testing, not so easy. But the thing is, you know, this is one article talking about fake bars of gold, as in fake branded bars of gold, and it just mentions in passing that fake gold adulterated with tungsten or other metals is quite common. I think that's a major issue. So now we've looked at a number of different issues within the same market. You've got issues around people in Manhattan buying tungsten filled bars multiple times. We've got issues with silver and gold coins, mainly coming from China. We've got issues with reputable dealers, reputable banks selling what they think is reputable gold, only to find out quite a bit of it is fake. And recently we've just looked at the gold market, where we're getting masses of issues around fake gold bars in China, from China, and also from the States, allegedly, into China. So now we're going to look at what I think is also a massive issue, and that's looking at the bullion markets. Now, you've heard me mention quite a few times the LBMA, the London Bullion Market Association. So let's just go and have a look at their website, because there's a few things we need to keep in mind when we look at this. The Bullion Market Association, you only can buy and sell if you're part of that team. It's quite a small group. And once bullion goes into this market, once the gold is made to a certain specification, it's placed in a vault with one of these members, and it gets moved around. Now, this is quite ironic, because you can own gold in the vault, but you can't get access to the gold, you can't check the gold, you can't test the gold. You've just got to rely on the fact that this bar or number of bars you have in this vault within these markets is pure gold. Should have been tested when it went into the market, but it never gets tested after that. So you've just got to trust the banks that when they're moving it around, none of the gold accidentally falls out and tungsten finds its way in, because obviously that would be fraud. And I'm sure, as you're aware, no bank has ever committed a fraud. Ever. Like, not once. Ever. So let's have a listen to what the LBMA have got to say about their good delivery service, and then we'll come on later on as to where there's some issues in this.
Good delivery is a system that enables the global trade of gold and silver bars. We set and maintain the standards that control the quality in the market. It's the de facto standard trusted around the world. Good delivery lists are lists of gold and silver refiners who are accredited by the LBMA to supply gold and silver bars into the London market. Refineries must produce bars which satisfy high standards in terms of purity, quality and physical appearance. They must produce at least 10 tonnes of refined gold or 50 tonnes of refined silver, and they must have a tangible net worth of at least £15 million. The LBMA believes that the long-term viability of a refiner is just as important as the rules. The lists are regularly monitored to ensure that the stringent standards are maintained. If a refiner fails to meet the standards, they will be removed from the lists, which will have serious implications both reputationally and financially.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen of the interwebs. The LBMA have set themselves up as the standard. Now, luckily, there's never been any historical case of fraud of these large organisations. You know, they haven't been laundering money, they haven't been mis-selling financial products, they haven't just been blatantly stealing money from people. So we can't obviously trust these people. But don't listen to me. You know, what do I know? I know nothing about the gold market whatsoever. So let's have a listen to somebody else's opinion, SilverTorch66. And I'll be leaving a link to this and all of the other things we've been looking at down below. So just listen to this, it's rather interesting.
And it is this system that I have some reservations about. Number 1, it was created by a central bank. 2, it chooses who the exclusive members are who will trade in this market system. 3, no one is permitted to see the gold other than the official custodians and sub-custodians. 4, once these bars are considered within the LBMA circuit and classified as good delivery bars, there is no longer a need to verify the bars ever again. A single 400-ounce bar could be circulating around the market for decades without ever being re-assayed for authenticity. This is a 100% multinational trust system of LBMA's members, comprising of 119 companies in 21 countries. They include the world's leading bullion banks, precious metals dealers, refiners, mints, assayers, transport and secure storage providers, as well as jeweler fabricators. This London Good Delivery List of gold was initially established in 1750 and is currently managed by the Central Bank of London. And 6. Fake tungsten-filled 400-ounce bars are being discovered in the gold markets. According to an article by Rob Kirby, published in September of 2009 entitled On Doing God's Work, in October of 2009, the Chinese received a shipment of gold bars. When the shipment was received, tests were conducted to verify their authenticity. Officials were shocked to learn that the bars were fake. They contained cores of tungsten with only an outer coating of real gold. It deeply concerns me to see a global market checks and balances process that is created by the central banking system, which has no auditing requirements, determines within its own organization who will be added to the list of members, and has no government or external third-party oversight. And the world trusts this market system? There are so many ways this system can become corrupt. Just a single link in the chain, and because they are all trusted, no one questions the product from that point forward, as long as it stays within the LBMA circuit. Even after claims that there could possibly be 1.5 million 400-ounce bars in the global gold markets, there is still no actions taken to protect investors. Well, I found out why. They have already set it up so that the investors will end up taking the responsibility and financial loss in the event the gold doesn't turn out to be authentic. The physically backed gold ETF GLD. GLD ETF was born in November 2004 and is the first ETF in the US to allow stock traders to directly gain price exposure to physical commodities, gold and silver. Stock investors could buy assets to track the price of gold, get immediate and easy knowledge about gold, then speculate, buy, or sell. It is the second largest in the world behind SPY, with a mammoth 1,117 metric tons of gold bullion in trust worth for shareholders. Check out the fine print listing the risk factors mentioned in the prospectus of the GLD ETF. Gold bars allocated to the trust in connection with the creation of a basket may not meet the London Good Delivery Standards, and if a basket is issued against such gold, the trust may suffer a loss. Gold Prospectus, page 11. This means the physical bars may not be up to standard of the London vault where they were actually held, and if it's discovered that the gold is in any way counterfeit or not pure, the fund and its respective shareholders, the trust, can take a loss. Because neither the trustee nor the custodian oversees or monitors the activities of the sub-custodians, who may temporarily hold the trust gold bars until transported to the custodian's London vault, failure by any sub-custodians to exercise due care in the safekeeping of the trust's gold bars could result in a loss to the trust. GLD Prospectus, page 11. What this is saying is a custodian is a financial institution that has the legal responsibility for a customer's securities. This implies management as well as safekeeping. In short, the custodian is in charge of managing the gold bars to ensure that the vault holds the proper amount of the commodity. The issuer of the fund and the company who manages the gold does not always directly oversee the person who physically puts the gold in the vault or sub-custodian. Should the sub-custodian lose a bar, steal, or damage any of the precious metal, the fund itself and the shareholders may bear the burden of these losses. The ability of the trustee and custodian to take legal action against sub-custodians may be limited, which increases the possibility that the trust may suffer a loss if a sub-custodian does not use due care in the safekeeping of the trust's gold bars. GLD Prospectus, page 12. In other words, if by some miracle a sub-custodian was able to make off with a bunch of gold bars or improperly cared for them, the shareholders and the fund may take a loss depending on the legal outcome. Legal action against said sub-custodian may be limited, meaning they are not sure if they will be able to win the case in a timely manner to restore the value back to the fund. In addition, the trustee has no right to visit the premises of any sub-custodian for the purpose of examining the trust's gold or any records maintained by the sub-custodian, and no sub-custodian is obligated to cooperate in any review the trustee may wish to conduct of the facility's procedures, records, or creditworthiness of such subcustodian. GLD 10-K filing, page 18. Basically, it means that the issuer does not have the inalienable right to visit the vault at will to inspect the gold. In fact, the subcustodian or the people involved with physically storing the bullion can outright deny admission for inspection to the trustee. These particular ETFs can allow the gold to be commingled with the custodian's gold, and the custodian can lease out the gold. Moreover, the gold custodian can give it to a sub-custodian that the manager doesn't know. The sub-custodian can give it to yet another sub-custodian unknown to the original custodian. The manager will never audit the gold, and the gold is not allocated to a particular investor. Since this is an exchange-traded gold fund, investors will probably assume the gold is regulated by the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, but it isn't. In summary, the world gold markets are riddled with holes and gaps, which leaves the door wide open for fraud and corruption. The LBMA touts that they are of the highest standard and adhere to the stringent criteria and procedures, yet there are no audits performed, no validation of purity of existing holdings, and all in the name of liquidity, so the seller gets paid quickly and efficiently, and bullion trading costs for both the buyer and the seller are reduced. It seems to me that at just about any point a legitimate gold bar can be replaced with a fake tungsten bar, and the question is, how long could it go undetected in the ETF vaults? If it's true that there are 1.5 million fake tungsten bars representing 18.6 metric tons of gold floating around in the market, wouldn't it make sense to route them to the ETF vaults and nation's deep storage cold vaults? The gold ETF holdings from the UK, USA, and Germany collectively add up to 2,018 metric tons. It would also take the entire gold holdings of both the London vaults at 7,449 metric tons and the national US holdings of 8.1 metric tons to cover this quantity of fake gold, which might already be in the system hidden behind closed vault doors. If these tungsten fake bars are in the market, the ramifications would be globally catastrophic. I believe this is precisely why we hear nothing about it in the mainstream media. This has to stay buried as long as possible, because it will mean the end for major financial institutions, bullion banks, bonded warehouses, precious metals brokers, commodity exchanges, and even governments. I believe this is why we will never see a true audit of the Federal Reserve, Fort Knox, or the London vaults. As soon as this becomes confirmed and public, it will mean the end of a global economy as we presently know it.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen of the interwebs. Fake bars, as you've just seen here, already exist inside the LBMA. And what you've just heard there is quite incredible, that if any bars are found to have tungsten inside it and you just happen to own that bar of gold, well, that's just tough. You've lost your money. Because it looks like the chances of actually getting any prosecutions out of this appears to be, well, we'll call it quite difficult. So, what do I think is going on? Well, let's just look at this from the 30,000 foot view. You know, we've looked at this from a different perspective. Let's just have a look at what I think is actually going on. Now, there's lots of things which I haven't put into this vlog because it would actually make it about 2 hours long. So I am going to add a lot of information which I've not even touched upon down in the bottom section, lower down. It's highly likely to be in the trillions. Now, just go back to what I said about $7 quadrillion. If there was just 0.01% of that gold has been adulterated, that's still $7 trillion of fake gold. Now, if I was Poland, I'd be a bit worried because just in the last 6 or 7 months, they've actually purchased something like £4.5 billion worth of gold from the LBMA. And if I was Poland, I would most definitely get them checked properly. But it's not just a fact of getting the bars and then finding out that there's something wrong with them. Sometimes, even if you're a sovereign state, the people in London, the Bank of England, won't let you get your gold back. And here's an example of Venezuela who've asked for their gold back and London's just said, no, you can't have it. I mean, this is down to the Foreign Office and the Americans' State Department saying, don't let them have the gold. And even though it's gold belonging to another state, another nation state, the Bank of England just turned around and went, no, you're not having it. So, in conclusion then, and we'll come on to until where you can buy your own fake gold bar, purely for, display purposes only, of course. But what do I think's going on? Well, look at it from this point of view. If we look at it from the 30,000 foot point of view, I believe there's been a concerted, almost industrialised effort to push as much fake gold into the gold market, whether it be coins or small bars or large bars or bullion bars or even the LBMA type of bars on the ETF markets, and to get in there, push it out and get out of the market as quick as I can before anybody discovers what's going on. And if you remember that video we saw about the LBMA and the ETF, if there's any dodgy gold in your vault, well, that's your problem. So if I was going to adulterate gold, doesn't matter if I'm Chinese or Indian or American, I'm going to try and push it into one of these markets. And if I can, I'm going to try and make sure that when somebody needs to pass gold from, say, London to Hong Kong, some of it falls out on the way and gets replaced by tungsten because nobody ever checks. It's a ripe market for adulteration just to be pushed in by the billion. So this, I think, is a ticking time bomb. I think China has got a large amount to do with it, but other nation states are also able to do this type of thing. I don't believe anybody really wants to check their gold because if they don't know, they can't do anything about it. I think ignorance is bliss, and I think it's deliberately not looking over there so we can't see the problem, so we don't have to fix it. Brilliant. What an excellent strategy that is. Let's just hope it goes away, but it won't. This is a ticking time bomb. I think there's going to be several markets, several countries, and quite a number of banks are going to be quite disappointed to find out they've probably only got about 35-40% of the gold they thought they had. And therefore will have a knock-on effect on many, many different currencies, different markets, different countries. Some countries will just be driven into utter despair. So anyway, let's not concentrate too much on the utter devastation that this issue will cause. How about you have your own tungsten but gold bar? Yeah, here we are at tungsten-alloy.com. A Chinese company will be more than happy to create your own gold bar, gold bullion bar, gold coin. Just go and have a look at this website. You'll be able to see what you can get. Now, it does mention on here, please don't use this for illegal purposes. It's a serious company apparently, but it will make you anything you want, whether it's a gold bar, whether it's a gold rod, whether it's a gold coin. They do all sorts. Highly recommend you just at least going in having a look. Well, I hope you found that informative, educational, and hopefully entertaining. It was going to be a little bit less than that on the initial plans. It wasn't going to quite take about 35 minutes, but here we are. Please don't forget to subscribe and tick that notification. Also, if you'd like to make a donation, buy me a cup of tea or a beer, that'd be gratefully received. Details are below, or you can go to grahamfrench247.com. Please always remember to stay safe. Thanks for your time here today. I've been your host, Graham French, and you've been marvellous, and I'll catch you on the next one. See you later.